Hi everybody, it's your buddy Brad here, and today I'm going to do a little tutorial on how to do a point cloud mesh um, from Mandelbulb 3D and importing it into the free software uh, Houdini Apprentice version. So here are from a couple of my example images that I have done create using the process. If you notice, with the apprentice version of Houdini, it gives you this little logo down here. Of course, you could always crop that out if you wanted, but that's not very nice. But let's get started. So let me close these. And so here in Mandelbulb 3D, we're just going to use the basic Mandelbulb as a example. Of course, you can always make some little adjustments if you want. And I find that if you actually make it a little bit smaller in the screen, it helps. And it has to be centered. At least it helps to be centered. So you just do view to main, calculate, and then we hit the mesh gen button up here, and it brings up the bulb tracer. Now, if you want to use regular meshes, you can come down here to mesh type and go to meshes. We are going to be using point clouds. What a point cloud is basically an image made up of a whole lot of dots and or almost like more like little tiny balls that in other software you can resize the size the bulbs, and if you find the right kind of sweet spot, all the bulbs mesh together to form a solid object. So if you go to import parameter from main, not sure why it's cutting off here. Sometimes you might have to adjust the scale of it. So right now I am on size 64 to get a better representation of the mesh. I clicked on the 256 here, and we're going to want the OpenGL window open. And for testing, I'm jumping ahead. The only mesh property you need that's available for point cloud is the volumetric resolution, which is how many points and how big the mesh will be. Just for a good test, you can increase this, but the more you increase it, the bigger the image, but also the longer it will render, and also the longer it will take to import a bit, which will create a bigger file size, which will take other programs longer to load it. So we're going to use, I'm just going to set this to the default here. You can set a where you want to save the mesh at. I'm just going to save it in my default folder here, and I'm just going to name it, let's call it test point. And it saves them as PLY files. Right now that is the only file type available. And so when testing, you want to hit don't save and only preview. So we're going to do that. Then over here, we get our mesh. And as you can see, if I zoom in to it, you can almost see all of the little dots. That's why it looks so kind of speckledly. Those are all tiny little dots forming together to form the solid object. You can rotate it around here. See how it looks. Looks good to me. You can also, you can do a spherical scan. It's just, I think it's the way it scans, instead of going up and down in a scan, it renders in a circle. It might produce, well, tell you what, let's see. Let's see what it looks like. It still renders it in the same way, but I did notice some slight variations, but it's kind of hard to really tell what they were. But I'm going to go back and turn this off, and now I'm actually going to render this. So you click on Mesh as PLY, click on Generate Mesh, and let's check our folder. Yep, there it is. Okay. So now we can go into Houdini. Houdini can be downloaded from www.sidefx.com, and they do have a free apprentice version that works pretty decently. So what we do first is we go to Import Geometry. I have a shortcut here to where my meshes are. And you find your mesh. Here's our testpoint.ply. Click Accept. Now here it is very, very small. So what you can do is either come over here to scale, drag an arrow and move it up, or I know a good, you can come over here to uniform scale and click a number I like 20. Seems to work for me. And it scales it pretty well. This is the they say the process I have used on my images. And I like to just add a floor to my images, and the way you do that is just come up here to Grid, click on Grid, place it, and then I also scale that. And then if you need, then you just select on the object again, and you can move it up. Actually, I'm going to scale it down a little. So this you can move it and resize it, and this scales it. What am I going to do here? Get someplace that we want. And then the next step, make sure your mesh is selected. You want to come up here to where it says Render and click the Render button. And then scroll down. Here it says Geometry. And then here is the point scale. And like I was talking about before, how programs can resize the size of the bubbles or dots. This is how you do it. And I find on these, you want to use a very small number. So I'm going to actually start with just 0.1. So next, you go up to Render, and you want to create render node. And the only two choices you can use in the apprentice version is this mantra here. So click on that. Then you have to click the render button again and preview in MPlay. And click on mantra 1. And now we get this message here. Could not find the camera. It needs a camera to render, so you just hit yes. Basically, it's saying they'll locate one for you. And we have camera. Now I can already tell if you want to stop, the bubbles are way too, bubbles or dots, I just keep calling them dots, are way too big. So you can close that out, click on your mesh, make sure you're still under the render and the geometry tab, and I'm going to go down to 0.5. Doing render again. This is where it will kind of depend on your mesh on what number you want to use here. Again, too bubbly for my liking, so I'm going to add another 0 there. So at 0.00 under point scale. Click render again, preview and then play. Okay, so now we have made the dots too small that there's too much space in between them. So it's not making a solid object now. So we need to find the happy spot in between the 0.05 and the 0.005. So I'm going to close this. Let's try 0.09. Still, yeah, here, here you can see how all the dots, points, there's just too much space in between them. I'm just zooming in and out. So let's go 0.0, let's try 0.02. Now they're actually a little bit too big. Let's 0.01. Okay, now I think that would actually look, let's try 0.03. Okay, I actually think this is pretty decent now. As a whole, I like this. This is pretty decent, I think. So, once you get an image you like, plus there are thousands of other things you can do with the mesh. There are a lot of tutorials you can check out on using Houdini. I am not going to go over those. So, when you're done, you just go to File, Save Frame As. Under the file name, click this button here. Again, I have a shortcut if I save stuff. Point test .png. Save. Then just save it. And then if you go to our images, we have our final image. So I hope you have found this useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Until later, bye.